To anybody that knows me, it's kind of obvious that I'm a little addicted to miniatures at the moment. I quite enjoy painting them. I don't play the games, but I love how they look on my shelves. And over the last year, I've painted a fair few. Some I've been really happy with, others not so much. But it's always very easy to compare yourself to others when it comes to painting. I've done it, I imagine you've done it. If we're going to be comparing ourselves to anybody, I think we should compare ourselves to ourselves. We should look at some of our old miniatures, like this orc that I've had for the past year. It's one of the first ones I ever painted. From a distance it looks alright, but when you get closer up, you start to notice all the little details that I've missed. Mould lines, chunky paint, botched metallics, and dodgy blends. This model has all of that. So this week I wanted to try and paint it again, so I stripped it down with some white spirits, got it down to the bare plastic and primed it black, and decided I was going to see how much progress I had made in the last year. If you've seen any of my videos recently where I've painted miniatures, you know I always start off with a dawnstone. I overbrush this over the model and finish up with a final dry brush of polyed witch flesh over just all the high points. This technique is commonly referred to as slap chop, and I tend to lean into it a lot, but I like to take it that little bit further. So right now I'm painting the orc flesh with a paint called, would you know it, orc flesh. This is what's known as a contrast paint. So it is slightly translucent, which allows you to see the dawnstone and Kislev underneath. Then I moved on to a Volupus pink, which I expected to be more purple than pink, which didn't really work, so I later cover it up. Next I move on to another contrast paint called Wildwood. I use this for all of the leather parts, all the straps, and I'm guessing what's holding his trousers up? Speaking of his trousers, we're now going to use Black Legion. Just a thin coat of this all over the trousers and the boots, which we are then going to build up with Dawnstone later in the video. Once that's dry, I moved on to a layer paint called Auric Flesh. I use this on all the high points that had hit the light of the orc's skin, and this has created a nice bit of contrast in between the deepest parts of the recesses and the highest points. I've chosen to layer this paint up by watering it down with a fair bit of water, probably about 3 drops per part paint, and this helps to just create a smooth gradient up to the highest point. I also used this to make any muscles that are missing from the model. For example, these back muscles that were missing from the sculpt. After a trip to the Warhammer store, I picked up some Leviathan purple and used this to coat over the Volupus pink. I struggled to get the lid back on, which is why my fingers are covered in this stuff. But over the Volupus pink, it made it look quite deep, so I was quite happy with that. I thinned down some Xerius purple, using once again 3 parts water to 1 part paint, and began to layer this over the model again. Slowly but surely building up the layers until it starts to have more contrast. Once I've done that, I then move up to my highest colour, which I chose to be the Charlotte Lilac. I always make sure to thin this down so that I can once again build up the layers, make a smooth gradient. It's finally time to cover that Wildwood using some Thondia Brown and some Gorthor Brown. I mix this equally and test the consistency of the paint on my thumbnail. If it's too thick, I add a bit more water and test it on the thumbnail again until I'm happy. I run this all over the high points of the leather, always adding a little bit more of that Gorthor brown just to line it up. A quick tip that I've also picked up throughout this past year is to avoid pooling, always dab your brush onto a paper towel. This gets rid of any excess water and allows for a smoother finish. Whilst I'm doing all this layering in the background, this is your friendly reminder to like, comment and potentially subscribe if you think I've earned it. I also have a Patreon which I leave a link to in the description, and you can also check out some of my friends on YouTube also in the description. And as a final highlight for all the leather parts, I'm using Kislev Flesh. I'm trying to use this sparingly as to not oversaturate the model. I also tend to use this as an edge highlight as well, just to show where all the leather has worn away over time. Not forgetting to also add a layer on top of the handle of the axe. I eventually decided to push my limits, put my big boy pants on and try some non-metallic metal. This is something I've really wanted to try for a while. I've tried it in the past and it's never really worked. But I've been watching a fair few videos and I think I've finally figured it out. To do this, I'm doing all the brightest points in that Kislev flesh and adding different consistencies of Dawnstone and Kislev flesh together just to make the blends a little bit smoother. I'd love any feedback you could give me on how well I've done this non-metallic metal and any ways that you think I can improve upon it. And I know Terrain by Aaron's just going to say, just use metallic paint. I know what you like, mate. I'm doing it my way. For those of you that are interested in this process, I'm going to let it load out just a little bit longer and then we're going to move on to painting these horns. So here we are, time to tackle the horns, and to do this I'm using once again Kislev flesh. I'm doing this over all the high points of the horns, leaving the bases slightly darker where dirt has collected over the years. After building up in layers, we're going to use some Seraphim Sepia just to draw it down a little bit, add a bit more of an aged look, and then we're once again going to go back into Kislev flesh to bring back that contrast. I know that I'm going to have some people complaining that the Orc's armour is a little too clean, but this is a stealthy boy. He's wearing purple, which means he's invisible. While he's waiting for people, he's polishing that armour all the time. Once we've finished this model with a layer of Dawnstone on the trousers, it's time to look back at what we started with. So as we can see, this power claw wielding gentleman started his life with a pretty sorry paint job. Not bad by any standards, but something that I feel I've improved upon. And now, he's a model that I can share with all my friends and be super proud of. Now all he needs is a base. So if you want to see a video of that, let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye.